Welcome to Bangs with Mark. You ready, Sid?
I'm stoked.
Okay, Sydney decided the kind of bangs I'm going to be videoing right now, which I think is a great idea. Curtain bangs are a little bit easier. Anything longer that starts around the cheek is usually easier. I still use the same method. I will tell you, for any bang that I'm creating, I do this method I'm about to do. Doesn't matter what kind, but I'll tell you my thought process so that you can create any type of fringe you like. So what is great about fringe is it can really change the face shape. You guys all know that. So when I'm looking at somebody's face, I'm looking, are they round? Are they narrow? All these things to what kind of fringe. So if we're doing a straight across fringe, most people would say if you have a round face, you can't do a straight across fringe. I disagree, however, because if you take small sections, like I'm gonna do right now, I always start my fringe taking hair. If I'm doing a fringe and not just a face framing, I'll take an even smaller section. I wanna be able to see through my section. If you can't see through your section, you did not take a small enough section. I'm also using these little duckbill clips because it's very important. If you prepped the hair properly, you don't want to use a normal clip that will be putting a crease in the hair because you're going to continue to work back. So these clips for creating a fringe are everything. So super small hairline that I can see through. Because I want to be able to see her eyes, I want to be able to see her face. Going back to my statement, how you can't have a straight across fringe, is dependent on how much of the face you want to open up. So if I only opened up, let's say we did a tiny straight across fringe, let's say her face was massively wide, and we just did a straight across fringe, all of this hair would be covering her cheeks, right? So it actually creating a pretty square and narrow, it would complement her face shape to some degree, and we could just have a tiny straight across fringe. Now, if she's worried about her face shape being too wide and you do a straight across fringe all the way across there, you've opened up her face too much.
She got fake cheeks.
Yeah, she got fat cheeks. So this is why I like to take a super tiny section around her hairline, because then you can see, okay, where do I want the sides to be? Do I want to open her all the way up, or do I want to close her down for her face shape, right? So let's say she's worried about that. I'm going to start in the center. And she does like them right around the brow, so I'll use the wide tooth part of my comb. And I always start lower and longer, knowing that hair, once I cut this off, is gonna bounce up. And I only do this on dry. So we'll do that. I'll have her close her eyes, and I'm already deciding in my head, I kinda wanna stop the fringe right around the eyebrow. I want the rest of her hair to cover that right there. And I can see she has enough density to where that's actually almost the breaking point, because I can see through to her eye, and then I can see how heavy that is. So I'll take my shear and just pick up that amount of hair with the wide tooth part of my comb and continue that over. I'll look at her forward. Okay, cool, I like that. It's right above her eyelashes.
Gorge.
Same thing over here. I'm gonna kind of determine where I want, at the end of her eyebrow, pick up that amount of hair. Wide tooth part of my comb. Cut. So before I move forward, obviously now this needs to be detailed a little bit. Notice also how straight it is because her hair was blown out long. So after I get my rough cut in here, I will re-wet the fringe and re-blow dry it, because when you re-blow dry it, it's going to jump up at least 1/4 of an inch. But before we do that, I'm going to continue taking small little sections of hair. Again, hair that I can see through on both sides. Tiny little sections. I like Bob Ross. Tiny little sections. And then if I can, I'll actually just place my shear in here if I'm not worried about cutting off her lashes or anything, and just cut straight across.
I was gonna say, if you cut my lash, I'd kill you.
Yeah. Depends, if they have a really big brow ridge that pushes it off their face, you can do this pretty easily. And just cut right that corner. I'm gonna lower her a little bit. But this can be applied to any fringe. Like I said, the most important thing is looking at their face shape, because that's when people don't like their fringe, right? It doesn't match their face shape. It makes them look in a way that they don't like to look. So it's either they're too wide, you've gone back too far, or you haven't gone back far enough. Because some people really like to open their face up, especially if they have a really narrow face, like a little tiny face. They might need you to go all the way to the recession on the sides to give them a full fringe. You also want to be looking at how high their forehead is. So if they have a tiny, short little forehead, a fringe might not be your best option. Usually people with a medium size to a larger forehead, fringe works better on. And I think this is the point when I was a younger stylist, I would start to get really nervous because they look horrible, right? They look like, they look like bangs. They don't look soft or anything yet because it's so blunt. But that's why after I get my length in there, re-blow drying is super, super important. Thoughts, Sid?
I think it's stunning.
What do you struggle with bangs? Anything?
Geez, where to begin? No, just kidding. Personally, I think when they're like, I want them lighter, and then I over-texturize them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just because they're wanting a softer
Yeah,
look.
and at first I'm like, oh, they're still heavy, and then I go too far.
I will say my trick for that personally is if I know somebody wants a really textured fringe or whatnot, whenever we point cut, even though we're not trying to cut off the length, we inevitably do. So if I know somebody's going to want a super textured fringe, even at this length, I'll start her fringe down at her nose, texturize it to where I know just the hair is as texturized as it can get, and then I will bring her length up second to go to that length, so that I'm like, okay, you got all the texture, you're not getting any more of that, but then we'll do the length last. Because usually by the time you texturize so much, there's no length anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's barely any length to it.
I'm like, just let them grow up.
The other reason I also, I forgot to mention this earlier, the reason I work back at a little at a time is because some people, they want just a wispy bang, right? So I'll grab a different doll head. It's our side part lady. Let's say she just wants a side swept bang, right?
I hate those.
Okay. So I'm still gonna take a small little section that I can see through. And let's say she just wants a little bit of a side swept bang. She doesn't, even though like all of this hair is really heavy, right? But she's like, no, I just want a few pieces. If you just start small around the hairline, you can blend it in so much better. So let's say she wants her side swept piece to fall like maybe the cheek area.
What
right?
if, okay, I have one client who I think this is hideous, but it's how she likes it. She likes it literally to like start eyebrow.
Okay, so again, I'm glad you're bringing this up. If her forehead is long enough, like let's say her forehead is this long, a 45-degree angle, because usually the most hair can sweep is up to 45. Like hair doesn't naturally rest at 90 degrees on the head. So if she had a small forehead like this doll head, I'd be like, listen, your hair, no matter how I cut it, it falls, you know, unless you want a hair sprayed over. So I would say, just know that, tell her it's gonna fall in front of the eye. Now, if she has a large enough forehead, then you can say, okay, well, when you sweep from here to here, that's more of a doable sweep than it is starting down there. If she has a short one and wants to push over there, I just let her know, always gonna fall in your face. There's nothing I can do about that.
Cool.
Yeah. But the same process, so let's go to the top of the cheek.
Okay.
If you're worried about like sweeping over that far. So I know that this hair is gonna wanna be over here. I'm really only concerned with this. So I take a little bit at a time. I will start slide cutting this down and I will push it over and I will see, oh, this needs more. I will literally, because again, I'm not worried. This is part where I do the texture first and I'll do the length second. So this is sweeping over. This is still too heavy right here. So I'll start taking that softer. See how this is already breaking up
Yeah.
some? And it's already sweeping over easier. So I'm gonna keep going and doing more texture. Even though it's way longer than she wants, I just wanna lighten it up first. So now we're lightening up and it's getting to the top of the cheek, right? Especially if she round brushed it or whatnot, that would just flow right over there.
Like,
so then once I have the general texture and the general weight taken out, then I will comb her back down and I will kind of put the angle in right down there.
Gotcha.
Because I think a lot of the times, and when I was starting out, I'm like, if you want it there, oh, I'll just cut it there. And that just freaks me out. So again, start with this and then take the weight out, then keep pushing it over, seeing where it's pushing to, and then come back in and do your line if you need to clean it up. Now, if she doesn't want to connect this, she just wants a separate piece, what I would usually do is pull her hair back, because usually girls that want their hair to fall over to their face is because when they pull their hair up, they want something to sweep over to the side, right?
Yeah.
So then I would be like, okay, well now we have a gap. So we know we need to add hair right around the hairline to fill in that gap so that when she sweeps it over, it covers the rest of her face, right? So I'm gonna section up the side to only pull out the hair that's enough to cover up the rest. Section that off. And I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm going, because she wants it really light, she doesn't want a heavy piece. I'm just gonna texturize this. Sweep it over, and then look at it.
Gorgeous.
I know I don't like that. I'm a very visual hair cutter, so I'll be like, do you want the pieces to stop around your jawline? Do you want it to start, like, where do you want it to start and stop? Asking all these things, and she's like, that's enough. I don't want any more. But let's say, just for, you know, giggles, that she wants a really heavy side fringe. I would still start it like this, but now we'll continue taking sections back until she gets the desired thickness. What if she wants some pieces right around the side? I just want some wispies right around the side.
I'm just joking.
A lot of the time, I'll pull their hair back and have them pull out the pieces that they naturally do. Because no matter what I think should come out, your own muscle movement and memory is gonna do something different. So I'll hold their hair in the back and I'll be like, just pull out the pieces that you would normally pull out. Usually it's just these guys right around the front. So then I will keep everything sectioned back.
Clip down.
And then again, ask her, okay, we've added a little bit more hair because you want it thicker and you also want pieces from the side. Where do you want these to land? So again, usually people like it around the jawline, maybe middle of the neck at most. So I'll pull the sections out, slide cut, because we want them super soft. Like that, and I'll just show her, like, what do you think about that, right? Maybe bring it up a little bit. But now we need to add this. But because we already have our line, we can comb this forward and see, that was our start line, that's those pieces on the side. Let's just go ahead and connect it. So when it sweeps over and it's curled, it just flows right into it.
Stunning.
Let's say she wants it a little bit thicker. Usually, they will not want anything from the side to be thicker, so I'm no longer taking hair from the side of the head. I'm only pulling hair down from the top right there. So we're still keeping everything up from the back. I'll comb this forward. At this point, it's harder to see my guide, so I'm gonna lift it up with my comb, the wide tooth part. See my guide from underneath. And I'll point cut into that, like that. At this point, if you're adding this much hair, this is when it starts to get heavy, right? They're like, I want that much hair, because maybe their hair is thin and fine and they want it to be more full, but it looks too heavy. At this point, this is when I will layer it. So I will take vertical sections. And again, anytime I want something to be softer, I'm gonna elevate high and I'm gonna cut at an angle short to long. So this front piece is from the hairline where the length is, so I know I don't wanna cut that off, but this is where the weight's coming from. So I'm gonna point cut that weight. I'm gonna continue taking vertical sections of the fringe. This is right from the hairline, and this is where the weight is. higher you elevate, the more at an angle, the softer it's gonna be. If I were to elevate out here, it would still make it softer, but it wouldn't soften it as much as if I'm elevating all the way up there. So now we can see that's really soft and it sweeps over really nicely.
She's gorgeous. Gorge.
Okay, let's get bang by Mark.